All right, welcome to the very first Antagonist Relations stream of Ultraviolet Grasslands in Black City. We're going to be streaming from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. Central the fourth Sunday of every month. I have to redo some graphics that just say every fourth Sunday, which is not exactly what I intended. It'll be the fourth Sunday of each month. So not every fourth Sunday, but the fourth Sunday that occurs during each month. Uh, I'm Zach. I blog over at Antagonist Relations .blogspot.com occasionally, not as frequently now, but hopefully I'll pick that up again a little bit here. And stream here at twitch.tv Antagonist Relations. And also, I'm part of the organizers of the Known World United Extra Life team and do stream one-shots on the Known World United Twitch channel occasionally. So I have 4 players who are joining to play Ultraviolet Grasslands in the Black City, which is an excellent sort of setting rules book by I guess I have not ever pronounced his name, so hopefully I don't butcher it too much, but Luca Rajek, which I have been wanting to play for since I backed it as a Kickstarter, and now making this my chance to do so. Um, so, for we'll just do some quick introductions. You can just say your name and potentially, if you've filled out the character bio, you can pick one thing from the character bio, that, or not the character bio, the player bio you want to mention, and then we'll get started. So one of the things I've been thinking about a lot for Ultraviolet Grasslands is rereading Odiwasi by Matt Fraction and Christian Ward. So I mentioned that in my player bio. We may have a like a public document that'll have some of these things as well in the future. But for right now, this is just for our use. You'll see we make use of lots of Google Documents and Discord for dice rolls for this game. So I will be the top cat, which is the cat is the sort of GM title for UVG or Ultraviolet Grassland. Cheryl.
Okay, I was interested in this partly because I've had a long interest in science fiction and fantasy stories. This is a bit out of my usual reading list, but that's all the more interesting for that.
All right, Christy.
I'm Christy. I am intrigued by this system as I feel like it is just going to be some sort of beautiful mashup between old school Oregon Trail and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which I feel like is worth my time and effort.
All right, then we have JP.
Hi, I'm quite fond of the various game creations that are sort of attached to the Hydra Collective that the creator of this setting is part of, I think, and I'm very curious about this particular one.
All right, and then last but not least, we have Lance.
So I am excited to play this because there is something about it that reminds me of one of my favorite movies, Turbo Kid, and I think it's going to be
Ooh.
zany and over the top, just like that.
Oh, Turbo Kid. God's willing.
All right. So for our session 0, I did put together a. I should start my timer. put together a session 0 document, so we can, if you want to follow along on that. Uh, Ultraviolet Grasslands in the Black City is a tabletop role-playing game that we're playing it online. It's half setting, half adventure, and half epic trip. It's inspired by psychedelic heavy metal, the Dying Earth genre, and classic Oregon Trail games. Our party's going to portray a group of heroes of a heroic level that will be determined. They don't necessarily need to be uh, out and out do-gooders, but they will be the heroes of the story. Into the depths of a vast and mythic steppe filled with the detritus of time and space and fuzzy rifts. So it's going to be a caravan, a motley crew journeying into a wild, half-forgotten land somewhere between the sunset and the stars, where the veterans of psychic wars still dwell, ruminating on their lost lives. And the game is going to prioritize exploration, discovery, and interaction over combat. Though I'm certain there'll be plenty of room for swords and blasters too, if the party wants to go that way. We're going to use 2 safety tools. The stoplight sheet and pause for a second. I'm going to cover the stoplight sheet first, and then I will explain pause for a second while the players are filling out the stoplight sheet. So in our UVG sheet Google document, we have a stoplight sheet. So the general tone of the game is going to be PG-13 to soft R, probably leaning more PG-13 for content and soft R for language potentially. So the stoplight sheet is a way for people to indicate their comfort with various things. There's 3 columns: a nope column, a just okay column, and a bring it on column. If you want to have something be left off the table, like anything involving eyeballs, you would copy the check mark and put into eyeballs, and then we will make our best effort to leave creepy eyeball stuff out of the game. On the other hand, if you're really into demons and you want to see a lot of stuff with demons in the game, you can put a check in the bring it on column for demons. The nope and the bring it on are the most important to me. People can fill in the stuff they feel just okay about, but I'm going to sort of assume that it's going to be the things I'm going to really pay attention to are going to be bring it on and nope. There are a few boxes that are blacked out, like drug use, freezing to death, heat stroke. That's because those are things I expect are going to come up, just because part of this game is the sort of Oregon Trail, taking a caravan across a vast wilderness. So those are probably going to come up. There's a couple things that I guess just a couple things I put as not marked as bringing on to mark my preferences, in that this game is not going to feature any explicit sex. Any sex that's going to happen off screen will fade to black. Likewise for sexual assault, we're just going to leave that out. If one person puts bring it on and another person puts nope, or one person puts bring it on and another person puts just okay, we're going to go with the more conservative option. If there's something that you don't have a strong feeling on, you can just leave it blank. And if there's something you don't need to worry about getting too in the details of the weeds on it. If we need to adjust it later, we can, or adjust it on the fly, we can, which is why the second safety tool that we're going to use, that I'll talk about as my players finish sort of filling out the stoplight, is the pause for a second, or I think it's usually referred to in some of the writings is the script change tool. So at any time during the game, anyone can say pause for a second. We'll stop play and figure out what's going on. It can be used to indicate that you want to move on or you're not comfortable with what's going on. So if I'm spending too much time describing a goldfish, how it has a weird smell and it has big goggly eyes and it's just getting creepy. You can say pause for a second. The goldfish stuff is getting too much. Can we move on? We'll do that. The other thing it can be used for is if things are escalating and heading down a path you want to put pause or rethink. Uh, you can say pause for a second. So like one of the examples that's given in Mike Shea's discussion of this in his podcast, Sly Flourish podcast, which is pretty excellent. That reminded me I should be doing more with these. Is torturing an NPC for information. Um, if you're not, even if you're okay conceptually with that as a player, uh, it might be a point where you just feel like things are starting to spiral, and you want the group to rethink it in this, even if it's just rethinking in that case. The saying pause for a second, is going to cause us all to stop and figure out what's going on. So even if the decision, even if you're not saying no to something, even if you just want to make sure that the party thinks through the consequences of, what happens if we torture this goblin for information. Is there a different way we want to go about this? Um, it's a way for we can like figure out what we want to do and go forward with. So if things, uh, it's not just for the it's uncomfortable, I want to move on from it. It's also for, wait, do we really want to jump into this, or do we need to do something first? Lost my things. So as we go, people can indicate. Will As you like finish other parts of character creation, if you want to go back and update the stoplight sheet, that's fine. Um, since we'll probably be focusing mostly on this character creation and world building today, uh, I'll, if it's not in a final version or a first draft of the stoplight, um, today, that'll be fine. I can have it to reference for when we start next session, and we might do a little bit of gameplay today, but we'll see how quickly we can get through everything else. So don't feel like everything absolutely has to be done or thought through. Uh, if you need a little time to think about and update the stoplight uh, after this today, it's not a big deal. And we can always revisit it if you're like something happens. You're like, no, I thought I was going to be okay with animal cruelty, but something's happened in my life where I'd rather avoid thinking about bad things happening to animals. Then it's totally fine. So those are the two safety tools we're going to use. Um, the next thing is going back to the session 0 document for a moment. So Ultraviolet Grasslands is set up to be what the designer calls an anti-canon, where it isn't the source book that sets all the setting information in stone. It's up to each play group to do some of that, to decide what they want for some of the historical questions and so forth. So what we have is a series of question or like decisions or questions in the world around section of in lieu of histories. So there are some sort of time periods that we can set. So for each of these sort of time periods, we can either roll a dice like this first. I think they might all be D12s. So this first one would be, we could roll a D12 to see what the forgotten times of the Ultraviolet Grasslands were like. The times of before history and so forth. So we can either roll, or if one of these sort of steps like stands out to any of the players, we could pick. So I guess it's a question for the group. For these sort of setting the historical facts of our own personal Ultraviolet Grasslands setting, do we want to roll or pick?
I'm all for rolling and just seeing what happens, unless there's one that really jumps out to somebody.
I mean, I feel like this game itself is going to be fueled by chaos, so we might as well just like lean into the chaos right now.
Yeah, I can go for a roll too. I just leave it up to chance.
Yeah, rolling for sure.
All right. All right. So then, what we're going to do is we're going to go in general for these sorts of rolling before we have character names and charisma scores. We're going to go with alphabetical by player name. So in the game sessions text channel, Cheryl, you'll roll a d12. So that's going to be exclamation mark roll space 1d12, and we'll figure out what our forgotten times were. So we got a 7.
Okay.
So if when you roll, if you want to read out the result that you got, and we
Okay,
can
7.
highlight it.
Sorry. Yeah, the fast stars blazed into life above the girdle of the earth, and humans were geosculpted gods. Sounds very exciting.
So then, Christy, you're gonna roll, and so then underneath each section of like the Forgotten Times, there's just a description of the sort of things that happened in the Forgotten Rhymes. So there were vile ones, shape changers, ultras. Some of that stuff will make more sense the longer we play. So then, Christy, you're gonna roll a d12 for dimly remembered strife. So there was a war. There's epic disagreement about whether it's an actual event. There might have been
And
more than
rolling
one
a
war.
d12.
Yep. So you got a 2, which is going to be the Vials tore themselves in civil war. Oh, I was going to let you read. People read. I'm talking too much. Go ahead and read, Tristy.
The Vials tore themselves in civil war, and the Lings destroyed them afterwards, ushering in an iron tyranny. Sounds intense.
So the Vials sort of stand in UVG for elves. Sort of bizarre, the sort of really classical sword and sorcery Conan type elves who live unfathomable aeons and seem bored with the world.
Are they kind of like aloof and just over it, like old school high fantasy D&D elves are?
A little bit. And then Lings are sort of perhaps human prototypes or human offshoots. That's also a little bit unclear, but they seem to be slightly distinct from humans, but perhaps able to intermingle. So then, JP, you're gonna roll a d12 for our fabled stories. So these are the half-remembered times before the Rainbow Order was founded around the Circle C.
Result is 12. Para-infantilists sought to return to earlier forgotten eras, aping and celebrating the collapsed Lingish Moors.
All right, and then our last thing to be rolled for is an oral history of the revolution. So this is the last sort of main thing that occurred.
I got a 10. So purges of anti-realists saw the economies of the Circle C boom and a neo-technological surge.
And so the Rainbow Lands and the Circle C are at the eastern end of our big map in Ultraviolet Grasslands. It's sort of a decadent uh, uh, human homeland that uh, where there's sort of it's thought of as civilization, and then our players are gonna journey west. Generally west. They could go back east or go north and south. Generally west towards the Black City, which is sort of a city at the edge of time and space. Uh, so it's sort of journeying away from the civilized lands towards a distant and half remembered uh, mythic city. Um, so potentially a lot of the PCs might come from the Rainbow Lands or not. Rainbow Landers are thought of as mostly baseline-ish humans, though for Ultraviolet Grasslands that includes sort of dwarves, half-elves, half-demon type tiefling creatures who might have scaly skin or horns, could all still be considered generically human or Rainbow Landers. So then the next thing we're going to decide or discover is going to be our travel quest, which is going to be the reason our party is traveling across the Ultraviolet Grasslands. This could be a D14. For the other group I'm running this game for off stream, what they did first is they went through and each marked off one of the travel quests that they weren't interested in, and then we figured out after they did that it was a D10, and they rolled a D10 to figure out which quest they wanted to do. So that could be an option here. So I'm just going to cover the sort of like high level name of each. The reason could be because it's there, to make money, big game hunting, explore forgotten ruins, as glorious naturalists, uh, venturing out to learn ancient secrets, heading off on a diplomatic mission or a tribute mission. The caravan could be used for escort duties. You could be raiders, where you might not start in the Violet City, or you could be on a quest of assassination. You could be on a quest to witness the end of time, to save the world, or to ascend into the sky like the shamans of old. Um, so I'll leave it up to the players if you want to uh, rule any out, or if you want to make a strong case for picking one without rolling. How you want to determine what your travel quest is going to be. The travel quest is going to be a big way that's going to guide sort of where you might go on the big map, and also how you're going to earn experience for your characters.
I mean, I feel like we just lean into the chaos again.
And you could, but I don't know if if you want to, before you lean into the
Right.
chaos,
I mean, if
rule
there's
anything out.
anyone that
Nothing jumps out, at least for me, that I'd want to rule out, but that's just me.
Mm. I could probably go with any of them. There's one or two I don't like as much as the rest, but I'd be willing to give them a try.
I feel like the because it's there is a little bit superfluous. Something more specific would be more interesting.
All right. Well, perhaps it sounds like we'll roll and see what we get, and potentially, if it is unsatisfying.
I mean, if it's one that we're all just like, boo, not that, then we can.
Yes.
We can roll again. Zach, I think your audio may have just dropped.
Nope, I was just looking at JP found the pronunciation guide for Luca
Reyes.
Reyes. So the Luca Reyes.
It's the end though. Reyes.
Reyes. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is the designer. So why don't we do this? Would someone like to volunteer to roll a d14, and then if the party is unhappy with what's the result, we could have someone make a second roll. As long as that second roll is a different result, we'll potentially go with the second roll.
I'll roll.
All right.
I think this is the only time I've ever done a D14 in my life.
All right. So we got a result of 9. Do you want to read that, Lance, and then we'll decide if the party wants to go
Yeah.
with that.
So number 9 is escort duties. So the party is helping 3 to 10 squabbling clients reach their remote destination. The clients may be, and this is on a D6 roll. Number 1, bumbling aristocrats. 2, overeager dilettantes. 3, cloistered cultists. 4, pampered merchants. 5, ivory tower scholars. Or 6, amateur archaeologists. We would get there would be an award of 400 XP for every client that reaches the destination alive.
Ooh, challenge accepted.
So we like the escort duties.
Oh, I think that has lots of potential.
Okay.
Then do you roll and figure out who they are?
Yes. So Lance rolled for the quest. So who would like to volunteer to roll? And we can do the same thing where if the first result doesn't speak to the party, someone else could roll a second time.
How about I'll do it? I'll roll this one. Roll
After it.
1d6. So we're getting pampered merchants.
3 to 10 pampered merchants.
I was hoping for dilettantes, but pampered merchants are good too.
Yeah, let's roll again.
Pampered merchants are good too. How do we know it's 3 to 10? How do we know how many of them it is?
Someone could roll 1d8 plus 2 would give us the 3 to 10 range. If someone wants to volunteer
Because
to roll
helping
that.
3 of them versus helping 10 of them to be alive.
Well, the more we help, the more our profit is in it. I'll try.
Exactly.
So the 1d8 plus 2 will generate our 3 to 10.
Come on, big money. No whammies.
6.
All right.
Well,
so you have 6 pampered merchants.
Should we be rolling separately for each of them?
To have separate travel quests?
Yeah, I mean to have separate. There's 6 of them, so they might not all be pampered merchants, I guess.
Oh, like if there's 6 of them, and then roll various d6s.
Yeah.
I guess I assumed it was one type of client you were escorting, because it is plural in the. Clients could be bumbling aristocrats, so I imagined it would be 3 to 10 bumbling aristocrats.
Yeah, that was my first interpretation too, but then I realized that if you have 10 of the same thing, that's kind of a waste of like about half of them.
Not if we get them all to their destination alive.
I mean, it's 6 pampered merchants.
It's a waste in the sense that there's not very much variety.
Oh, well.
It would be nice to have a mix if there's so many.
I am open if you want to if we want to have say 3 pampered merchants and then a couple others. So I guess if Christy and JP, you haven't rolled for the travel quest yet, so you could each roll and see if you get. We'll go. There'll be 3 pampered merchants, and then each of you will will generate either one or two, depending on what the results are, of another of the options.
Okay.
I got the Pampered Merchants result, so Christy, you should roll this one.
Okay. Oh no!
Oh, 6.
Uh,
Amateur archaeologist.
So we've got 3 papered merchants and
and 3
3
amateur
archaeologists.
archaeologists. Okay.
Oh,
So
I think
they might not be going to the same place, and their goals are going to be in conflict because the merchants probably
I mean,
want to
that's
make their
why
money
they're
quickly.
squabbling.
Yeah, that's right.
of
And
course.
the archaeologists want to dwell.
Yeah. And the archaeologists are probably treasure seekers too, so they'd be very motivated to stop and go off looking at something interesting. I think I think that's good.
We're really writing this adventure for you, Zach.
Oh, did I understand this thing correctly? And the special dedicated name for the game master in this system is the top cat.
So there's a table of
Yeah.
different cat titles, and I'm going with top cat. I might have rolled randomly or chosen a different
Oh,
one
okay. Alright.
if we were playing in person. But some of them are like award extra experience for people who bring snacks or who help clean up,
I
which
see.
is less applicable to the online
That's
game
true.
experience.
Do you intend top to mean something like a summit or more like a children's toy?
Probably more like a summit in that a high. It was also meant to sort of be reminiscent of a top hat.
Ah, yes.
Ah, ha, 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 ha.
Gray little cat.
All right. So you're gonna get. I'm adding this to the XP awards on the AV sheet, the UVG sheet as well. That you're gonna get 400 experience per client delivered safely to a destination.
But they're all worth the same amount.
Yes.
It's not like the archaeologists are worth more points than the
No,
merchants are.
and I will, as
But
you're
it's the
creating
same amount of
characters,
each of them.
determine, because like maybe 2 of the merchants are going to one place and another is going to another,
Oh my god.
and the archaeologists might not all be going to the same place, so there might be a bit of jumping about. All right,
Drama.
so now it is time we're gonna, speaking of the experience, if we move to the UVG sheet, all of us, and you're going to want to go to the XP Awards tab, which currently, because we have like a sample PC and the stoplight sheet earlier in the order, is fairly down in your sheets. But this is sort of where we're going to keep track. It's not an exhaustive list of how you can earn experience, but it is the start of the list of how you'll earn experience. One of the things that UVG does differently, or the CCAT system does differently from other role-playing games that you might be familiar with, is players learn the experience, and then you can invest that experience in not only your primary PC, but if you decide to have a pet, you could put experience in your pet, invest experience in your pet, or in a vehicle. If you decide that you, instead of having a pet, you want to have a motorcycle that gets better, or a hot rod that gets better, or a camel that gets better. Or in if you get sort of sidekicks, you could invest experience in that. If you decide that you want a sentient sword, you could invest experience in that to make it better. And experience that you don't spend or invest on your PC, if your PC dies or retires, then potentially it would still be in your player bank, so then you could invest it in a new PC to start at a higher level. So there's some general things like exploration. When you get to a new location, you'll get some experience. If you see an anomaly, you get experience. If you explore a site, obviously just like D&D, since, is it second edition when you started getting experience for defeating monsters in combat? Or was that in first? I forget when it switched from just treasure to
It's there
monsters.
in first edition. Also in the original, actually. It's been there from the beginning, just it was a lot less.
A lot
less. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is, if it's an easy conflict where there's not really any danger for the party, you won't get experience. But if it's like a brutal combat uh, where like you have hench folk perish and there's lots of danger and you have to abandon some things, you might get a bunch of experience. The person who delivers the final blow will get some extra experience. Um, Other things that can get you experience is like carousing, uh, dining. So if you find a new restaurant or gastronomic experience, uh, uh, partaking of drugs as a character potentially could be. But I really want to cover quick the stuff that is I've got marked as organizational and character experience opportunities. Uh, so to sort of encourage players to take roles in sort of managing some of the documentation and helping run the party, I'm going to give experience for people who volunteer to be a caravan quartermaster, chronicler, or mapper for the session. So the quartermaster would maintain our caravan sheet, which is sort of the shared sheet that covers the caravan, how much your uh, loot you might be carrying, trade goods, animals, vehicles, henge people, and so forth. The chronicler would be whoever maintains notes for the session, taking notes of you left on day whatever from this location, and you reach the next location. They don't have to be super detailed. You're gonna want like location, if anything notable happened, and stuff like that. Any notable NPCs, but it could be as simple as just some bullet points. Um, the caravan mapper would be the person who is most responsible for potentially notating or updating the big map. So the mapper might, you might get to the low road and the high, and you might go on a little side trek and find a location. Like there's a couple of sample side trek locations at the start of the sample big map they give, like Last Cherished Salon and the Rusted Hand. But there are more of those that could get like marked on the map and notations made. Just because the trails that are on the big map are marked, it doesn't mean that there aren't other trails or other locations that could be found. And then it's in the character, but if someone volunteers to serve as the party leader, being responsible for making the last decision or making sure that decisions are made in a timely manner, that will also earn experience. And then the sort of like, so those four, no, I'd like to try and avoid one person having the two of those roles, but if that's the way it shakes out, that's the way it shakes out. But the thing that could be doubled up is if someone keeps track of initiative. And so the experience per session is just to incentivize some assistance with that stuff. But this will be a place where everyone can always refer back to how you're going to potentially earn experience, so you can sort of plan for that.